Hey, this is Jesse for Bit to Brain. Today I want to talk about fixing certain computer issues, protecting your system, and things like that. I'm running a Windows 7 machine right now. There's a lot of little things that you can do to optimize your system, to fix certain issues. A lot of times if you're infected with a virus or malware or something like that, you can bang your head against the wall, spending hours and hours or days fixing an issue, when a lot of times a simple wipe and reload is the best bet, the best thing for you to do. If you don't have a lot of applications installed on that machine and you have a system disk, a lot of times it's just better just to wipe it and start from scratch and reload those applications and configure it. So you can a lot of times do that in a couple hours as opposed to spending days trying to track down, chase your tail, go down the rabbit hole and all that. I've seen that many times. Yeah, sometimes you got to know when to give up the fight and just move on. So you'd back up your data. Basically, you'd use something like easy transfer. So you would just run this. I'd traditionally run it to a flash drive. If I was backing up from this particular system, I'd say this is my old computer. I'd back it all up. I'm going to cancel this because I don't need to do it. And then I would run through the process again and say that's my new computer when I'm taking it off the USB drive. It's pretty easy. It's self-explanatory. Now a lot of times you're going to want to do that, especially if you have a system disk or ISO image. But if you want to go down the rabbit hole, the thing about Windows is there's so many different ways to sort an issue. And a lot of times you find out what the issue is, you find out the solution, and it's just a simple little thing. I know a lot of times if you're getting run DLL errors, I've seen often. Now let's open up the command line, run as administrator. I've seen numerous times if you just run sfc/scan now, that will work. Now I'm not going to run this here because it's going to take a while, but just run that command and you'll be shocked. I know the last 5 PCs I've worked on, 3 of those, that actually fixed the issue. It's just a system file check. I've seen that fix run DLL errors. I've seen it fix other errors. I just run it from the beginning, especially if I have some time, like I'm going to a meeting or whatever. I just let it run. It does take a while. You may want to try other things first, but I'm just saying if you have the time, try that out. There's also the old check disk /R. So basically when on startup, it's going to check all the sectors and fix all the sectors on our drive. So I don't want to do that now. But those are 2 things you can just try right away. And it does take a while. So like I said, if you have a meeting or some other engagement, just go ahead and run that. You don't want to sit there and be staring at the screen because there's other things you can try. So if you're seeing weird errors on your system, the first thing you usually think is, oh, I've got malware, I've got a virus or something like that on my system. So that's when you want to make sure that you have something like Malwarebytes on your system. We've all heard of Malwarebytes, I think by now. There's a free version. The paid version is just, it's always active on your system. The free version, you actually have to manually scan it. So if you haven't seen it before, this is what it looks like. So you would just click scan now. Just make sure it's updated. You know, if it's sitting in your system and sitting there a while, just make sure you update it first and then go ahead and scan it. And that will look for malware on your system, as it's called, anti-malware. Another good thing to run on your system is the Microsoft Malicious Software Removal tool. So you'd go here, you download this to your system. I don't want any of this on there. Keep your damn bloatware. That's the thing you need to be careful about when you download a lot of this stuff. Make sure when you go to download it, you don't download other crap that you don't like. There's a thing I get called Slim Drivers. It's a great little tool that allows you to get updated versions of your drivers for your system, but by default, it tries to add a little bit of bloatware on there, so make sure you don't get that. So now if we want to run this, we click next. We can do a quick scan, a full scan, a customized scan, just to give you an idea what it looks like. Doing a quick scan here. Alright, now that finished. It took literally about a minute and a half to do the quick scan and it found nothing. Now another application I like to run is TDSS Killer. This is by Kaspersky. Now this will allow you to remove rootkits, which these things are kind of nasty because you can run malware scans and it may not even find that malware because it's hiding out. So I'd probably run this even before I did Malwarebytes if I downloaded it. Now if I've got the paid version of Malwarebytes, I'll just let that run because it's running in the background. Now there's also something called Combo Fix. This will also scan your computer for known malware. I use it, I have used it. I prefer Malwarebytes, but it is something that you can try if you want to double up. Maybe you feel like Malwarebytes might have missed something. You can also try that. There's also Spybot, which you can get off spybot.com. So if you go to download here, you get the free edition, which we can look at editions here. So basically you can use a lot of these and you can use them in combination. But when it comes to antivirus, you only want one antivirus because they can see each other as threats, as definitions are being updated and stuff like that. So you'd want to have one. Now, the best free one I think is Windows Security Essentials. I think it's the best of the free ones, and it's not as bloated, but it's not as effective. I mean, independent tests have shown that it doesn't find things that some of the other ones find, like Norton, for instance, Kaspersky. But it is free, and it does a pretty good job, and it's pretty scaled down. It's not a resource hog. I've been running it for a couple years, and I think it does a reasonably good job. Now, another piece of software that you should get is called CCleaner. It's pretty popular. I have this version. I use it on both my Windows and Mac machines. You can do a ton of stuff with Cleaner. It cleans up all the files. So basically, if we're running it, I don't have much going on here because I just ran it. But we'll go through and look for, as you see, temporary internet files, your history. We'll basically clean up your system. You can also run on your applications. So we can use this on our registry as well to look for issues, which I have no issues. I actually just ran this about an hour ago, and I did have issues, and I fixed them all using this. With tools, you can uninstall, so you don't have to go into your control panel, add and remove programs. You can do it within here. You can do your startup from here, so rather than going down, do an msconfig, and running a select startup from here, you see you can do it from within Crap Cleaner, also known as CCleaner. You see you have options for extensions. When you did a system restore, if ever, drive wiper. Now you can wipe your drive from here. You see you can do up to 35 passes. You'll be there for a while. So if I had a flash drive in here and I wanted to wipe it, I can do it from within here. So you could do a lot. This is the free version too. And you'll see we have some other options here. Like if you just want to secure a specific file, you can also do it from here. And again, you can do it up to 35 passes, which, like I said, you're going to be there a while. The other options that you need the pro version if you want to do real-time monitoring. That's usually how it goes with most of these applications. If you want the real-time monitoring, like Malwarebytes, you're going to have to pay for it. But CCleaner, even the free version, is an excellent source. Now, another thing you want to do is always make sure you have your Windows updates, so schedule that to always update. Make sure your Flash and your Java is always updated, because as time goes by, if you don't update Java, there will be security holes and attack vectors will open up, and they will leave your systems vulnerable. Now, if your system has a weird situation where the drivers are acting kind of screwy, like let's say boot up in safe mode. So you boot up, you hit F8, and you boot up in safe mode, and things seem to be working, so you suspect a driver issue and you want to update drivers. There's a great application called Slim Drivers. This utility is kind of neat. I just used the free version, and it seems to work out pretty well. Now, of course, you can go into the control panel and update drivers from there in your device manager. But I think Slim Drivers actually does a better job, so I stick with that. Now make sure when you install it that you only get Slim Drivers, because the last time I installed it, it actually asked if I want to install other stuff, and I don't want that. No bloatware. So be careful when you install that, and that goes for anything in general. Now if you have to remove programs, of course I showed you in CCleaner, you can do it from there. Of course you can also remove applications from here with programs and features. You can also fix applications. Let's say for instance you have to fix, I've had situations where Office 365 was acting kind of squirrely and I had to repair it. So you'd click on change and it would repair it from there. I've had this happen more than once. So sometimes you can fix applications through that or outright remove it. And there's also an app called Revo, I'm not really sure how you pronounce it, but that also will allow you to uninstall applications and get the free version. Now if you want to further optimize your system, you can check performance, information, and tools. You can do a cleanup. You can look at advanced tools. So you can do, for instance, a disk defragmenter. If you're running it on an SSD drive, not a traditional HDD, you should not do that, because really the performance improvement isn't even worth on an HDD now for the most part, but you can get slight improvement, and I would run something like Defragler, but there's a whole host of tools here and reports that you can get just within here. So if you click on generate system health report, you can find some stuff out here. It's just a good idea to do this to get a baseline. So we've run the diagnostic report, which is a good idea to do from the beginning. And you see it passed. Looks like it passed everything. So that's pretty interesting. Good idea to run through this, especially in the beginning when you're going to look at something. Maybe you just, the system is fresh, or you're about ready to make changes. It's just a good idea to run this to get a baseline. It hasn't recorded an antivirus product. Well, that's pretty interesting. Because I know it's there because it's Microsoft Security Essentials. Interesting, but it doesn't see it. Anyway. See, what's great about performance information and tools, this advanced tools section, is there's so much stuff to look at here. You can check out your performance monitors, you can check out events log. I mean, really as a technician, this is where you want to be. You can go to the task manager, so you check your performance, CPU usage, memory usage, stuff like that. So make this place your best friend in the control panel. You can rate your system as well. Alright, so as this is finishing up, some things we went over is make sure you scan your system if you see errors. So you'd run like sfc/scan now. You can run a check disk /r. If you check for anti-malware or something like that, or if you suspect you have malware on your system and you want to run Malwarebytes or combo fix or something like that, I'd run the TDSS Killer tool from Kaspersky. That'll do a rootkit scan. Run your scan, then run your Malwarebytes to check for malware. Make sure if you have antivirus running your system, which you should, just have one version running, don't have multiple versions. You can run various versions of anti-malware and anti-spyware and stuff like that, but only run one version of antivirus protection to remove unnecessary programs from your system. Uninstall things, run Revo or CCleaner, or just uninstall programs to your control panel. Make sure your Windows updates are always good. Your Java and Flash updates, because they are gaping security holes if they're not updated. They can be. They usually are, because it is an attack vector. I talked about CCleaner, how great CCleaner is, how you can remove junk from your system. Temporary files have been sitting there for a long time. You can also manipulate your startup items. You can securely wipe out files on your system or drive. Be careful with that. If you want to defrag a drive, you can of course do that if you just have a traditional HDD drive. Don't do that with SSD drive. I wouldn't even use the built-in defrag software on a Windows machine. I'd use something like Defragler. If you want to update drivers on your system, try out Slim drivers, but be careful when you install it. Don't get the bloatware it may come with. Oh yeah, I also forgot the malicious software removal tool from Windows. Definitely recommend using that. Okay, you see this returned. And we got a 4.8, not the greatest. Might need some work. So I'd want to do some research on this to maybe improve the score. But it gives me a pretty good baseline now of what's okay and what's not okay. Another thing I recommend doing is just giving an overall assessment to make sure you do meet the minimum requirements for what you're trying to do with the system. So make sure your RAM, your hard drive, the CPU is meeting the requirements of the applications on your machine. Because a lot of times you go in with your operating system and your hardware, and a couple years ago down the road, and you've installed all these applications and it slows down, or maybe you've installed applications that your hardware is just not powerful enough. It's just taxing your system way too much. So like graphic editing programs, video editing programs, and things like that, 3D rendering or whatever, can really slow down your system. So make sure that your hardware is strong enough to compensate. So you may want to do something like do a Parkdale hard drive test. If you run the Parkdale test, you can actually see the speed of your hard drive, your read and write speed. So that's something worth doing, especially if you're want to compare the speed of an SSD drive compared to an HDD drive. Let's say you're doing video editing or something like that, and you want to kind of check out to see what kind of results you may be getting. Just go to that Parkdale test and try that out. And another thing that you may want to do is every once in a while, if you have a desktop, it's getting a little older, it can overheat in there. All these moving components. So you might want to just go in there with just some compressed air and clean it out a little bit. Alright, so that's a lot of stuff to cover. That was just kind of a high level concept of, I didn't want to go into specifics of applications. We kind of wanted to see CCleaner a little bit, but basically all these things you can try, or just do a simple wipe and reload when you have an issue that's too big and you feel like it's going to be a big clock suck. So thanks for watching, guys. This is Jesse from Bit to Brain.